Well, I think after listening to a mixture of English, New Zealand, it's no surprise it's Australia's turn. And, you know, I think one of the attributes is that New Zealanders and Australians have a tendency to talk very quickly. And so I am always conscious about slowing things down just a little bit. And before I get started, being Australian, my mother's side of the family is Irish with the name of Beaver. Although over here, Beaver's not listed as an Irish official name because it got mangled up into becoming Weaver from time to time. But there was one gentleman over here in 1951 who liked to shoot game birds, and he was wondering how fast they flew, and no one could tell him. So he sat down in 1951, asked around a few things. Nobody knew much of anything. So in 1954, he published the first book that was the Guinness Book of Records. And the managing director of Guinness at that time was Sir Hugh Beaver. Now my sister says, don't get too excited, but we don't know about the records, but there's only a handful of families called Beaver in Ireland. But the one attribute he has was he was intensely curious. And I think from time to time people think I'm somewhat curious. So anyway, not that I'm a curiosity. I want to welcome you. I was very pleased to get this opportunity. I have a fairly detailed slide deck here, but that's going up on the website of NTI. It is not my intention to read every slide, but I'm a storyteller. And if you don't know by now, I write a lot, post a lot, comment a lot, because in essence, that's what I like to do. I like to tell stories. So this slideshow is a background, sets a scene for the stories I want to tell. I'm going to open with just the background on NTI. NTI has been in this business a very long time. They've been in the business of replication to preserve the integrity of operations following any kind of disaster, any kind of takedown. They did pioneer data protection with the methodology based around change data capture. And when you look at the history of these things, you'll see a whole lot of function, implementation, overlap between products like DRNet, Golden Gate, and even Stream. And that's because they kind of have a common heritage. And in fact, if you look at the people involved, there's been a common thread of people moving through all three. And I'm not to say that there was any kind of copying or anything like that going on, but models were established and followed. And that's why this is the premier way of doing replication today. When it comes to NTI, they do have data centers scattered around, as you see. The USA and Ireland, we've got offices in the USA, Ireland, and Mexico. And the thing that really I find amazing even today, that you can actually pick up the phone and directly talk to the folks building the product. The support organization is available to all. It's not filtered, doesn't have to go through anyone. So at NTI as the data company, the product set, the DRNet product set, which is the foundation, has customers all around the world. And I'm going to be talking about the customers in a little bit more detail as we get further into this deck. But, you know, when you have something that's spread from Australia, South America, Asia, North America, it says a lot about the quality of a product and its applicability in the world of replication. And I think that's the strong point that I'm trying to make at this point in time. But I've got a couple of other points I'd like to make here too. The business of replication can be executed in many different ways, going from asynchronous to synchronous to running across channels or running across networks. For many of you, you know me that at Tandem Computers, I managed the data comms group. And back in those days, it was a group of 4 people. We had responsibility for the hardware. There was a whole group for SNA, a whole group for TCP/IP, OSI, a whole group for LANs, etc. Quite different from today. But one of the things we watched the transition was in the fact that WANs took over from LANs kind of thing when you started to build global networks. We used the LAN technology, etc. But what that means is today's modern networks are all based on a connectionless internet protocol, IP. So what does that mean? When you have an internet protocol that's connectionless, you can build massive enterprise networks on it that run at the same speeds that we used to have on channels. IBM, for instance, runs all of its enterprise class, enterprise to enterprise over IP networks. and that's why it's called HPRIP. Bottom line is there is very little difference now between running a dedicated channel versus going over the wide area network. And in that case, the asynchronous processing is a much more a minimal approach than trying to run things synchronous. Do they both lose data? I bet no one wants to bet a pint of Guinness on that they never do. But in the 40 years of history at NTI, there's been no transactional data ever reported lost through an asynchronous over a WAN. So I think that speaks volumes. If you go to Golden Gate, same thing, same architecture. Go to data streaming platform, same response, no loss of data. Because the inherent networks themselves are fault tolerant. And that's where I like to tie the two together. And then the other thing I'd like to think of is that at NTI, the focus has always been on performance. And see, it only took me 4 or 5 slides before I threw a car picture up. And those that know me pretty well know I'm a bit of a car nutter. So one of the things here is when you see a modern car, you see the advertising from V16s or Quad 16s down to 12s to 10s, all different varieties, which is fine for the automobile industry. But when we talk about computing, you only just want one speed really fast. You just want it to go. And so at NTI, we don't have any stripped-down versions that slow things down. We don't have cheap versions that are slow. All of our versions, irrespective of the features, will run at the same high-performance level. And I just caught myself speaking a little too quickly then, so I'm going to try and slow down again. But, you know, that's just the background. As far as the product portfolio goes, that replication product that had its origins 40 years ago, that replicated from a point A to a B, make sure there was disaster, it opened the door to us considering doing other things with data. And that's why you saw the focus on the first slide about NTI considering ourselves now the data company, because that's what drives everything. The customer's demands for the movement of data for all sorts of reasons is what's driving the roadmaps for the product portfolio. So what you have now is, with replication anchoring this set of products, you have one model, one technology, one product, and we're providing a unified single source solution with all participants on the NTI price book. Now, this is something we've done quite deliberately, but we're now adding other people's products, tools, utilities, services, so you can get them from NTI. And if you're a customer and you see a function that you'd like to see embraced by NTI, talk to the guys at the desk. If you're a vendor who you think your product aligns well with the direction of NTI, come and see us as well, because they will align as well. So yeah, the product set has got a group of products under DINet Unified, which is the traditional products, and then we've actually complemented them, as you can see this list, with tools and utilities. Expanding the product portfolio, we started by adding a distribution capability to both DB2 and to Oracle, and we have customers doing that. And one of the things I like to hear when you see the trends, and I'm going to touch on it just briefly, is hybrid computing. And you have to go back and think, well, why did Tandem put SNA and X25 and things on the non-stop system? For the most part, it was to connect back to an IBM mainframe. Back in those days, a whole proliferation of plug-compatible mainframes running finance. So from the dawn of Tandem, very few people bought one and stuck it and ran every one of their applications on it. No, they ran a payment, it's a mission critical, and then it was connected to something else. So non-stop for 50 years has thrived in a hybrid world. We probably have more experience with hybrids than anyone else. And today, the non-stop system itself, in my view, is a hybrid inherently within the racks. So this hybrid stuff is not new language for us. Yes, what we connect to has changed, evolved. And we start to look at, what am I going to do with analytics, with clouds, etc. These trends are pertinent. And what we've done at NTI is made sure that we can take what we've been taking off the non-stop, add capabilities to make it a data streaming platform, and direct it to wherever data needs to be consumed. So we do an integration exercise, not only distributed, but we're now doing it with Kafka, and doing it with Kafka fairly intensely. And this is the first indication where we've partnered with good friends at Infrasoft with their Ulinga for Kafka. But it's not just throwing two products banging together. We've actually got cooperative development going on to streamline this and to have it truly as a data platform, because one of the things that I really like about the Kafka is when you set up all the topics and stuff, you can fire it at time series databases. And once you get into time series databases and you get into things like Prometheus, then now you can start to do analytics, because we have financial institutions that are saying, it's too late to tell me there was a fraudulent transaction. So in that way, we've created Kafka going bidirectional at the transactional level. And we're doing our first testing of that now, and it works. So that means we'll be able to do the detection in real time, not in the future, but right now. We're starting to do that work. And so I think that's this kind of things that when you start to think, I'm a data company and I move data, now what can I do? So we're moving outside of the box of the traditional data replication. That is our core. That's what we do. But then we're moving into areas where we can do the integration and the distribution, and in the process, working with the Ulinga guys, etc., we're doing some pretty cool transformations as well, incorporating metadata and so forth. So that's what we're expanding the portfolio. One of the things that really has come to the fore is because of the similarity in architecture with Golden Gate, and because both products had a very intimate relationship with ACI, then we really can move very rapidly from a Golden Gate environment to a DRNet environment when the application is base 24. NTI predated Golden Gate at ACI. And you had this wonderful situation for a period of time where ACI was happily selling NTI, and In Session, which was owned by ACI, was competing with them with Golden Gate. So it had a kind of sibling rivalry going there for a while. But both of these companies have access, or had access, to the same internals, same message formats, same files, everything. We have a product in DRNet that is completely self-contained, doesn't require any other products to be introduced, any other learning curve, any other operational impact. Whether it's TMF or non-TMF, DRNet does it all. And so we introduced that as a product, and we've done our first ones now, and we've got our second one going. The second one that's going in, I'll touch on later, is the fact that they skipped the POC and the proof of concept, and they just want to go straight from the Golden Gate to the DRNet. And I just mentioned Kafka. I see Kafka as almost like MQ series on steroids in terms of flexibility. I wouldn't suggest you replace MQ series with Kafka, but some creative people might think that's possible. But you get the point. It's a universal kind of vehicle for ensuring data can go anywhere. And we were approached by a number of customers of how can they integrate with the modern and open environments that are now encamped inside of their IT operations. But one of the things that we're introducing right now, and there's a data sheet on this out in the NTI stand and across at the Infrasoft stand as well, is we're introducing Gateway. And Gateway we added to the portfolio of DRNet products, not because it was really cool technology and the techies got together, but a customer had a security issue and some protocol issues that weren't dressed with the rest of the product sets from HPE or from some of the other partners. And this was really an opportunity to plug some gaps that we found. And so the customer asked us for it, so we went back to the Infrasoft people, came to terms with it, and I'm still trying to understand this one as well. But what I'm seeing from the customer's responsiveness is it seems it's a pretty cool product. Gateways and these types of products are very much like Swiss Army knives. You get a core capability and then you start pulling all sorts of things out of that base. And as we've started to do that, it's become quite impressive. Some people think of it as a Rosetta Stone because it maps one thing to the other. And we have Tansoft. And one of the things that we've really gotten to like and our customers have is we've had a relationship for some time, but the compare and repair feature is really taking hold. If you want to know about the record cover there, I love it, because how can I be sure? How can I be sure in a world that is constantly changing? How can I be sure? So when you're doing a replication and you have data sets, etc., You want something to be able to compare at a very rapid rate, realistically, to see if they're in sync, to be sure. And then the repair function that follows that, that's more astute. You don't want to just throw a real fast repair and match. You want to find out what really was. Was it sequencing or something else? So this one really works, and it's super fast because of what Jack did with his block hash technology at the compare function. So as you can see, our product set has the replication at the center, and we can replicate heterogeneously, etc. And then on top of that, we're starting to build into processes, replication to processes like with Kafka. And then with TANSOF, we're making sure it all works. And so we're building this suite to give you confidence that when you're shifting data, it's all happening for you correctly. So I talk about the flight. I talk about the journey. And I've been putting this campaign together with the help of Margot and Tim and some others about comparing it to a flight. Because when you start to look at products from different vendors, one of the things I've always liked, and I snuck it in here, is this quote from Isaac Newton, that they stand on the shoulder of giants. In other words, you move forward from experience. And so one of the things that I have liked, and I've gone and drilled in very deeply with NTI, is to get a real handle on the customer usage. Success comes from following those who've already succeeded. I mean, why do we have to keep reinventing stuff if there's people, customers and partners that have done something with positive outcomes? So trends, trials, trajectories, destinations excite. Hey, we're going to go on a journey. Where are we going? Where are we going? So, first trend, I love this because I was just watching what went before me, and I had not seen the presentation. But there's a high correlation. I came up with exactly the same trends. Modernisation. And as I said, I'm not going to read all these slides, but one of the things that I'm going down there that I like was modernisation is not digital transformation. You know, digital transformation's over here going through a process. Modernisation's a great big thing. You should be digital transformation. But today we identify so much that's going on in the IT as modern. And when it comes to modern, you can see down here, because the end users are demanding something better all the time. They want cost savings, operational agility, scalability, resilience, security, and you've seen that talked about in the presentation before. Modernisation is focused on preparing your IT infrastructure, your IT systems, your technology and products to succeed in this data-driven world. Yeah, with the data company. So modern IT, responding to the trends. In a data-driven world, nothing happens in a vacuum. And the technology trends that influence product development, advancing product, establish new trajectories, which I kind of like with this journey things. And here we have hybrid IT, AI, and I threw in cloud computing. Casey threw in security, and security is an underpinning. So I like that. But this is what we're doing, and this is what's driving much of what we're doing with where we're targeting our destinations. So, trend number 2, execution commitment. Don't you like this? I want people to know that we deliver on our promises. And I think when you start to see, if you want to stand on the shoulder of giants and things, you want to know that the giants are doing things, you know, that they're delivering on the thing that they said. So in 2022, we said people and places. We've added personnel in Latin America and EMEA, which is coincidental because of the growth markets that have been identified by HPE. We've added Infrasoft and TANSOF as partners, integral working with us. We've added new customer wins, which I'll talk about, and participation, marketing strength and focus programs in the rugs, these levels. You'll see a high presence of NTI. But that's just the start, and as I've mentioned before, yeah, we've added products. Adding personnel, saying that you've got some partners, talking about maybe winning customers, and beating up on your marketing is all kind of nice stuff. But where's the meat? What's going on? Where's the products? So this is what we've been doing. Golden Gate conversions, Kafka, gateways, etc. And so now we start to talk about customers. And I think this is the meat of the presentation. And everyone that's up here now has a case study on the website. And all of them have agreed to being in this environment. So we've just done another thing with going through a whole exercise with Everlink up in Canada. And they are an active passive user. They're bread and butter. They have the replication. And part of that is because they're servicing a lot of other people and their network is fixed and they don't quite have the flexibility or the budget to invite switching of data to set up an active environment. But they've been around very good, and their guy, their technology vice president, when you talk to him, just talks for reams of how he likes the NTI products. And I was very encouraged when I put the papers together with the help of one of our guys, Trevor here, who did nearly all the hard work in getting this information. I was just putting a few periods on it. But apart from Everlink, we got Nationwide here. And Nationwide I pulled out for a very specific reason, which some of you might be interested in. They're an active passive user as well, but when they were going through this system refresh and migrations and stuff, they turned on active. So when you think of active, it's not like, you have to have it all the time or it's a really impressive thing to do. But there are situations with migrations that it'd be really cool to keep everything synced while you're going through the migration. And having assurance that you're working with current stuff. So that was really impressive to me. And then down in Worldline, we have a really ongoing development site, if you like, with a customer. They're in New Zealand, and they're fully active. But they've gone way past just using active for the obvious reasons of making sure that they just don't have a box that's doing nothing but being the target of data coming off your primary system. Both of them are primary, sharing the workloads. And what they've done is, apart from being an active, they ship data and update Oracle databases that spread around the place. They've actually gone in and used a published DINet API that we have to go and do their own transformations on data that's passing through. And they use DINet as the driver for all their migrations. And they set that up with the scripting they've done that it's DINet that's driving the staging of when data's moving through it. So they've built their whole environment around the replication capabilities inherent within DINet. We've just done a EU bank over here, DINet Unified, that went and converted them from Golden Gate. We converted from Golden Gate and did it in about 5 months, maybe 6. But one of the things that's come out of this is they really are enjoying it, and operationally, coming from Golden Gate to DINet, there was no strain on their staff or anything. It was just reasonably transparent. But what they've done now is there's so many connotations in America with gold stars, and I should have used something better. But I just wanted to give them a gold star because of the reliability of the product. They've licensed, and they're the first ones using the Kafka. So we have real-world customers now running the transactional Kafka. And I'm going to get to talk about these guys, explore what they're doing with it. They just signed for it, and they've got it running. But one of the things that came out of this one was there was correspondence elsewhere in the world with another customer that was Golden Gate, and because of their proof of concept said, we don't need one. So they're now licensing, just go straight to it, which I really find stand on the shoulders of giants. Somebody did it, and it really worked. Why can't I cut short my 12 months of POCs and pilots and stuff and wear the cost of doing all of that? Let's just go. And if you know me, I'm always someone who likes to get going. And because we do base 24 and home written stuff, they're not the only things to do. And I just throw this Connex up there. Connex is not as widespread as base 24. But this is one of the top 3 plastic card issuers in the world, and everything's built around DINet. And this was what is, again, reinforcing this message. We've got so wide a breadth of deployment that you can be assured that whatever your situation is, NTI has something that addresses it and has a proven track record in doing it. So, one of the things that I've been working on for some time is to come up with a brand, some kind of label, that actually puts an umbrella over the non-stop DRNet user base. And we call it the 2% Club. It's not the 1% Club, because this is not an elitist kind of thing. 2% Club is just like a loyalty program. And if we're on a journey, everyone knows about frequent flyer points and all the benefits. And so that's what the 2% Club is all about to our loyalties. Now, it's a brand new program, and we're building on it. So HP Nonstop launches the Starship. It all came out yesterday with the banner. The references to space, etc., that have been percolating amongst the user base now for quite some time was what was the catalyst for coming up with Flight Journey. And in doing that, what we did was we kind of gave ourselves at NTI attributes that you'd normally associate with a travel agent. I mean, it's kind of low-balling, kind of intellectually kind of thing, but what do you get from a travel agent, right? You get assistance with planning. You'll get those typical responses of, have you considered this from your travel agent? This is a better route to take. This is a better flight, etc. And over time, you create relationships built on trust with your travel agents. And so on short notice, you can call them and say, hey, I need to go to Singapore on Tuesday. Can you find the cheapest way for me to get there and get me a seat? And that's exactly what we're finding ourselves doing in the dialogues we have with the Nonstop customers that are present here and present in all of the rugs around the world. So the 2% Club is also important because we can then communicate and satisfy requirements in a very changing destination environment. The destinations aren't anymore just going and updating an IBM mainframe somewhere. No, that's not the destination anymore. It can still be, but we know now there's many more destinations. And one of the things that is unique from us at the transaction level is we provide return tickets. Think about that. You're shipping the data out. It may be good to get the data back sometime. So come talk to your travel agent, find out how you can do that, how you can leverage that, how you can actually take advantage of being able to do certain checking, validation, etc. in flight. And also, we've added a new destination, which I just touched on, with Kafka. Kafka can take you anywhere. It's almost a universal pathway. And so that's a very important thing, and it's we've just tested and have released the first transaction-focused round ticket. And the new loyalty program recognises Nonstop customers who value all that NTI can deliver, even on a Starship. Even if we're talking about planes, why not talk about a Starship? It's very simple. The 2% Club it's not a club in the sense that you might think, but it's just a loyalty program. It's open to customers, and prospects alike will be able to tap into. As we build out this program on the website, etc., there's collateral and things we're producing just for those people to see, comparisons, etc. And we have our own newsletter. NTI launched it this quarter. Next one comes out in June. And the newsletter is just a simple thing with quotes from customers, quotes from products, quotes for the industry. And it's a way, if you like, to communicate very succinctly with links, because there's so much information out there, and I have to admit I contribute it to a flood of stuff from time to time. I still get the comments that I write more than a lot of people can read, but be that as it may, it's good to get summaries. But on the back side of that, you're going to see, as our plane takes off, that Kafka acts as a really powerful front end to Nonstop as well. And I like what Andrew Price had to say here when I actually got to quiz him. And you know, it's like, you get a Nonstop once did for IBM mainframes as a front end, enhancing the transactions. But what we really are now doing is you can enable seamlessly real-time data streaming while maintaining non-stop's reliability. In other words, you can actually feed into the non-stop's going to stay there, you can feed out of it. But you see the newsletter that's backside of us is the 2% club loyalty program. I picked the word 2% club advocate because many of you know I come from a newspaper background. I'm a third-generation newspaper man in my family, on the other side of the family. And my father's first newspaper was The Advocate. So I thought it was kind of nice to borrow that. So the 2% Club Loyalty Program is a reward for those as current and potential future clients, as I mentioned. NTI positions itself as your travel agent for the reasons we talked about. You want a relationship, you want to know what your options are, you want to know if it's going in the right direction, whether there's something available that will take you there, and most importantly of all, are there people already doing it, done it, etc. And I'd just like to close with a commentary from our Director of Technology, Alphonse. What we see as the priorities with our non-stop customer base is to be best in participating in a world that is hybrid, as it is preparing for AI, and where there is expectations that at some point part or all will be running in the cloud. And I think this is paralleling or in line with what HPE is telling us. And our response, says Alphonse, has been to build on replication as the core, as the central, that's what we do, in support of tighter integration between non-stop and the rest of the enterprise, that hybrid, allowing non-stop to prosper as an integral participant in the world of hybrid IT. And with that, folks, I'd like to thank you. And also, if you have time tomorrow, to tune in to more details on these processes that Tim Dunn is going to be providing towards the end of the day tomorrow. Thank you.
We've got a few minutes for any questions. If anybody has any questions for Richard.
I'm sorry?
When you replicate to Elasticsearch, is that by Kafka or?
No, that's direct. That's what it's just JSON.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't use Kafka to go to it. We could, but no, we can just go straight into it. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Richard, thank you very much. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sticking to time as well.